your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Since the spooky season is almost over, I created a tier list of one of our favorite film series, which is the Scream franchise. We're going through 3 categories and ranking all 6 movies from best to worst. So for the first category, we're ranking the opening scene of each movie. I'll put the first movie first since it was my introduction to the Scream franchise. If the opening scene wasn't good, I wouldn't have continued to watch these movies. I love the suspense the opening had and how the events unfolded with a phone call from a stranger. Ghostface didn't hold back with their style of ending someone's life. We get to see what led up to the brutal death of Casey and her boyfriend Steve. I also thought the emotion her parents felt after they found her on the tree was realistic, and I didn't expect Ghostface to put her on the tree like that. I figured it was a solid start to a movie. It didn't take long to get to the point. The next one I added might surprise you. I decided to put Scream 6 since it did something different from the past movies. I liked how it followed the same format as the first movie, with a university professor named Laura being catfished and removed from the planet by her student Jason in a Ghostface costume. Still, as soon as he ends her, he doesn't automatically show the Scream title afterwards like it usually does. In the next scene, Jason returns to his apartment to meet with his roommate Greg. Instead, Jason gets a call from a different Ghostface who removes Greg and him from the planet. I liked how long the opening scene was and the twist since it revealed who Ghostface was at the start, but was eliminated by a separate Ghostface. I put the 5th Scream movie next since it did something more modern. They had Tara use a lock system on her cell phone that could be used to arm the doors, which Ghostface continuously disarmed. I also felt we saw more knife attacks by Ghostface happen here to a single victim than we're used to seeing. It's a miracle she survived. The 3rd movie opening was okay. The traffic scene with Cotton rushing to save his girlfriend from Ghostface was a nice touch to this movie. I just thought Cotton would have lasted longer after his redemption arc, and it was interesting how Ghostface could mock the voices of others to lure them in. The second opening was my favorite since I found it to not make sense. Ghostface manages to end the life of one of his victims in front of a lot of people. The victim walks on stage in a terrible condition, and no one bats an eye. Also, I believe this was one of Jada's weaker performances. I felt like she was acting like herself. I also found it unbelievable that she decided to continue the date after he returned wearing the Ghostface costume. She should have known something was weird about him when he wasn't talking back to her. My least favorite opening was the 4th one, since it did something we've seen before in other films. The movie begins with a Ghostface attack, and we find out it's a movie within a movie within a movie. We see it happen a second time with them tricking us into believing Ghostface ended someone's life. I found it annoying and a bit repetitive to the point that when the actual attack happened, I didn't believe it was real and felt uninterested. I thought the opening scene left more to be desired. I also wasn't a fan of the acting with Jenny's character when Ghostface attacked her. Okay, so I have to put Scream 2 first since it had one of my favorite death scenes. My favorite was when Ghostface took control of the police car after attacking the cop on the driver's side and crashing it into a construction zone with a pipe entering the cop's eye that was sitting on the passenger side. I thought it was brutal, and watching this scene with my eyes open took me a while to do. Sydney and her friend had to crawl over the unconscious Ghostface shortly after the scene. It was anxiety driven for sure. They also got rid of an original character, Brandy. Rest in peace. Okay, the 3rd movie also has one of my favorite death scenes in which Gail and Dewey are at the house of one of the cast members from the Stab movie. Ghostface starts faxing them a script of someone's demise. The Stab actor who plays Dewey goes back inside the house after everyone runs back outside, and then the entire house blows once Dewey's actor pulls out a lighter to read the final part of the script. I thought this was well done and well written. The first movie had a decent number of death scenes. I didn't feel like they tried too hard to make them over the top. They were quick and straight to the point. Sometimes movies try to overdo it to gain more shock value. Tatum being crushed by the garage door was a frightening scene to watch. The scene where the TV was thrown on top of Stu's head will forever be iconic. It was nice to see the main character fight back against the perpetrators. Scream 4 has some decent death scenes. There were times when I felt like the victims were trying too hard after being attacked. The most over the top was when Sydney's publicist ran for her life in a parking garage. The Ghostface throws her off the top after attacking her multiple times. The sixth movie didn't have many deaths. None of the rebooted characters from the previous film died, but I did hear a rumor that Mindy was supposed to die in this movie. I thought the saddest death was when Annika was thrown off the ladder while trying to get away from Ghostface. I honestly felt like her death could have been prevented if someone who wasn't injured would have stayed back to fight off Ghostface. The fifth movie wasn't bad, but I was upset when they eliminated Dewey's character. He was there from the beginning and was a fan favorite. After hearing they were divorced, many people were rooting for him and Gail to get back together. The fifth movie was treated as a soft reboot, with Sam taking on the role of the main character. After hearing the news, knowing there would be a Scream 7 with Sydney returning as the main character, it just felt like a waste. I just hope we get to see Dewey again in the next movie. I enjoyed watching all of the Scream movies. I never thought any of them were boring or uninteresting. This list was based on the movies I feel like new people would enjoy if it was their first time hearing about the Scream franchise. The first movie was my favorite. It was my introduction to Ghostface and made me interested in learning more about our main character Sydney and why she was so reluctant to open up around others. We find out it's because of her mother's controversial death. The sixth movie is my next favorite since we're introduced to a new set of characters, and Sam does a great job filling Sydney's shoes. I like this twist they added. Her father, who was an ex-Ghostface, constantly appears before her as a ghost to influence her to continue his path. We also get to experience what life is like in New York. The second movie is my next favorite, since we follow Sydney to college, where she can hopefully have a fresh start. However, that all ends once Ghostface appears. I thought they did a great job showing Sydney's life after high school and how she managed to live on after all the losses and tragedies. The third movie gets a lot of hate, and if I had to guess, it's probably because of some of the bad acting. However, the movie has a more interesting reveal of Ghostface. He leaves a picture after every crime scene, which hints at their identity. We see Sydney come to terms with the controversial death of her mother, and we learn the truth about what happened on that day. The fourth movie was treated as a revival, with Sydney still being the main character, but with a larger focus on her younger cousin. She's similar to Sydney in many ways, except one. It's almost like Sydney can't escape Ghostface, even if they're a family member. The fifth movie was okay, but it left more to be desired. I felt like the people behind the Ghostface mask weren't that hard to figure out. It's almost like the movie was trying hard to be a modern version of the first Scream movie, and it began to lose that charm that most people liked about it. Luckily, they were able to rekindle the missing charm for the sixth movie. Overall, the Scream franchise will forever be my favorite. I am a little sad that we won't see Sam and Tara again in the upcoming Scream movies, but I'm also happy that Sydney is returning for the next film. I just hope Scream 7 will be more suspenseful than the last movie, and they somehow incorporate Dewey into the next one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bye!